We have a couple more properties we're going to learn in this lesson, 5.3. What we need to look at is raising a power to a power. Okay, we've not done that yet. So if you look here, let me get something here. If we look here, when we raise a number that has a exponent to another exponent, in this case we actually multiply the exponents to get the answer. Okay, so we'll take m and multiply it by n to get the answer. Okay, so that is multiplication there. So if I have 5 to the 4th raised to the 2nd power, it's actually going to be 4 times 2. This is the only time we're multiplying exponents. Okay, we get 5 to the 8th. That's different from 5 to the 4th times 5 to the 2nd. That's going to be 5 to the 6th because you add exponents when you multiply, but when you raise a power to a power, you multiply the exponents. Okay, m3 to the 5th is going to be m15. Okay, a 3 halves to the 3rd, you just multiply 3 halves times 3. That's 9 halves. And remember, the bottom number is the root, the top number is the exponent. So that would be like a to the 9th, but the square root of a to the 9th. Okay? That's pretty bad. That's an a and that's a 9. They both look like 9s. Okay, but it's the square root of a to the 9th. Okay, here x to the 1/2 raised to the 3/5 is just 3 times 1 and 5 times 2. It's x to the 3/10. And that would be, not that you'd have to figure this out, that's the 10th root of x3 is what that means, but we can just leave it like this. Excuse me. Okay. The next property is just raising a product, two things multiplied to a power. And it's, to me, it's like, I call it distributive property. Basically, you're just taking that exponent and putting it on both of those. So it would be a to the n, b to the n. Okay? So in this case, I have 3x raised to the 4th. The 4th exponent 4 goes on the 3, exponent 4 goes on the x. So it's 3 to the 4, x to the 4, and it's 81x4. 3 to the 4th is 81. Okay, here we have 4b to the 3 halves. Basically, again, distributive, you just distribute that. You get 4 to the 3 halves and b to the 3 halves. The b to the 3 halves stays the same, but the 4, we're going to take the square root of 4, because that's what that says to do, and that's 2. Then we cube it. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, and that's where we get that. Okay, and that's an intro to what we're learning. Okay, in example 1, we're simply simplifying. Okay, that's what we're doing. So the first one, I've got x to the 3rd raised to the 5th. When I raise a power to a power, I multiply. So I get x to the 15th power. It's x to the 15th. Okay, moving on. Number 2, I got y to the 4th raised to the 1/8. I'm going to multiply 4 times 1/8. When I do that, I multiply the 4 by the 1. So I get y to the 4/8, but I can reduce that to y to the 1/2. That's just the square root of y is all that is. Okay, so y to the 1/2 is my final answer. Okay, looking at the next one, I've got x to the 3/5 to the 15th power. Okay, I am multiplying, but since I'm multiplying, I can certainly cross reduce. Okay, that's going to be a 1, and that would be a 3. Then it's just 3 times 3 is 9. So I get x to the 9th power. If you don't like that, just 15 times 3 is 45. 45 divided by 5 is 9. Okay, you can do it that way, but it's x to the 9th power. Moving on, number 4. Y to the 4th doesn't change. It's going to stay the same. All the work is right here. So it's 9 times 1/3. That is just 9/3, which is 3. So I get x to the 3rd, y to the 4th. Okay, x to the 3rd, y to the 4th. The y to the 4th doesn't change. Okay, here we're going to go ahead and multiply first. The negative is telling us to move it, but we got to go ahead and do the work first. So initially I'm going to get x to the negative 12, and then x to the negative 2. Okay, x to the negative 12, x to the negative 2. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put these together. These are multiplied together, so you add the exponents, you get x to the negative 14. Now the negative tells you to flip it. So put 1 over x to the 14th power. And this is our final answer. Okay? So just do the negative at the end after you simplify everything. Okay, here we're going to look at the first one, the x. I get x to the 5 raised to the negative 2. That's going to be x to the negative 10. Okay, y to the 1/3 raised to the 3/4. It's just going to be, these 3's will actually cross reduce. and I get 1/4. Okay, so it's going to be y to the 1/4. Now that's still not fixed because I've got an issue with this negative, so I've got to move this to the bottom. So I'm going to move it under the y to the 1/4 and put x to the 10 bound here. Okay, so it's y to the 1/4 over x to the 10. And that is simplifying powers that are raised to another power. Okay, in the next set of examples, we're going to just complete the statement, basically filling in the blank or the question mark here. So in the first one, I've got x to the second raised to some power that gives me the x to the 14. Well, since you're multiplying these two things, that's going to have to be 7. Okay, so the question mark in this case is a 7. This is a little harder. Okay, we got to think about this for a second. I'm going to get a -6, so I know this question mark is negative because I've got to multiply it by a positive. Now, I'm going to divide by 3. So to get 6 when I divide by 3, I need the top to be 18 because 18 divided by 3 is 6. So the only way to get that top to be 18 is to multiply by 9. So if I multiply that by -9, -9 times 2 is -18 divided by 3 is -6. Okay, and that should give me my answer. Here, I've got 36x to the -6, so 6 squared is 36, which is what we want. To get a negative, this has to be a negative exponent. To get a -6, since I'm multiplying, that has to be a -3. -3 times 2 is -6. Okay, look at this one. I've got the y doesn't exist. So what does that mean? If the y goes the way, that means the y's exponent has to be 0. And if the y's exponent is 0, the only thing I can multiply by 4 to get 0 is 0. So that has to be y to the 0 power raised to the 4th is just 0, or 1, sorry. It goes away. So it's just 16x8. Okay? Next one, what am I raising this to get these things on the bottom? First of all, you get a 4 and a 6, and I have a 2 and a 3, so it's going to be a 2. And to get them on the bottom, it's going to have to be a negative exponent to flip it. So it's going to be -2. Okay, now here, a little bit tougher. I've got something raised to the 3rd power is equal to x to the 2nd. Okay, something raised to the 3rd power. So basically, since this times this is this divided by this will be this. That means what's 2 divided by 3? It is simply 2/3. Okay, so let's see if that works. 2/3 times 3, that gives me 2. Okay, so that works. Again, you can work backwards. Since you're multiplying these two to get that, you can divide this by this to get that. And that's what we did. 2 divided by 3 is 2/3. With the third set of examples, we are going to simplify harder problems. Okay, so look at the first. I need to get rid of this parentheses. So to do that, I need to distribute the 2. Now, when I distribute the 2 goes on the negative. So I'm actually squaring the negative, which makes it a positive. So that actually goes away. Then I distribute the 2 there, so it's 2 squared, which is 4. Then when I put the 2 with the 3, I get x6. Okay, so the negative goes away because it's an even power. I'm sorry, that 6 looks awful, but that's what it is. Plus 3x6. That's even a worse 6. 4x6 plus 3x6 is just 7x6. They are like terms, so you can simply add them together. Like terms meaning they have the same variable part. Okay, look at number 2. Get rid of the parentheses, so I'm going to distribute this 3. When I do the 3 on the negative, 3 negatives gives me a negative, so I get that. When I distribute the 3 to the 3, that's 3 to the 3rd, which is 27. Okay, when I do the 3 to the 1/3, that's going to be 3 times 1/3, which is just 1, so it's x to the 1st, and it's going to be y to the 3rd. So I'm just taking that 3 and distributing it all through the parentheses, and I'm multiplying the exponents. Okay, get rid of the next parentheses. Distribute the 3, get x to the 3rd. 3 times 2/3 is just 2, so it's y2. Now multiply these together. When you multiply, you add exponents. Okay, the -27 stays. There's nothing that changes that. You get x and x3, which is x4. y3 and y2 is y5. Okay, that looked bad, but it wasn't too bad. Okay, here distribute the 2. So the 2 goes on the negative, that makes it positive. You know, and 2 negatives make it positive. The 2 goes to the 2 here. That's 2 squared, which is 4. The 2 goes to the negative 4, which is negative 8. That means it's going to go on the bottom. X8 goes on the bottom. 2 goes here, that's Y4. So I get Y4 on top. Now I'm multiplying by this, okay? So 0.3 squared, yuck. That's just 0.3 times 0.3, which is 0.09. Okay, put the square on the x, it's just x squared. Okay, and put the y3 with the 2, that's y6, because you're multiplying. Okay. Now, here I'm multiplying. Okay, these two things are being multiplied together. Okay, this and this. So I know my writing's terrible, but this is x to the 4th down here. Okay, that's hard to tell. I'm sorry, x to the 8th. That's an x to the 8th. Okay, I've got 2 x's here and 8 x's here. So if I cross cancel, that gives me 4 x's. That's 6 x's on the bottom. So I'm going to write my final answer here. 6 x's on the bottom. Okay. Now I'm done with that. Now I'm going to multiply the 4 times 0.09. That's going to give me 0.36. The y4 goes to the y6. That's y10. Yuck, after all that, that's our answer. Okay, it just takes a long time. It's just real tedious. Okay, but it's not that bad when you just break it down. Okay, here, this is actually not bad. We've got 10 to the 3rd raised to the 5th. That's 10 to the 15th power. Okay, 10 to the 15th. Now all I do is I put that 10 with that 10. Since it's a scientific notation, you just add the exponents, 10, 15, 10, negative 2. That's going to be 10, negative 4. It's going to be 10 to the 11th power. Okay, and nothing changes that. That's just 3.1. I'm just putting those 10s together, like part to like part when you're doing scientific notation. Okay, so 10 to the 11th. Okay, here I've got 4 to the negative 6, and here I've got 4 to the positive 12. Okay, now first, since these are multiplied together, I'm just going to add the exponents, and I get 4 to the 6th, and that's it. I don't need to flip anything under until I need to simplify. And when I simplified, I realized I didn't have to really move in or take the reciprocal or flip it. I just kept it 4 to the 6th. Okay, one more. This looks like a doozy. Okay, distribute. That's going to be 3, some dog barking out there, 3 to the negative 2. I've got x to the 4th. And then I've got y to the negative 6. Okay, we'll fix that in a second. Here, the negative 2, again, you're squaring it, so that negative goes away. The negative doesn't matter with this one, it's just you're squaring it. Okay, then I've got 2 to the negative 2. I've got x to the negative 4. And I've got y to the positive 10. Wow. Okay, let's look at this stuff. It would be really nice if I erased some of this, but that's a little too late to do that. Let's see what we can do with this. So the 3 and the 2 go on the bottom. So let's put it up here. I've got 3 squared on the bottom, then I've got 2 squared on the bottom. They're multiplied together, okay? So I've taken care of those two. I've got an x4 on top and an x4 on the bottom. Okay, taking care of those. Now I've got a y10 on top and a y6 on the bottom. y10, y6. Okay, we can clean this up pretty good. Okay, we're going to do this. 3 squared is 9, 2 squared is 4. 9 times 4 is 36. So I've got a 36 on the bottom. Now I can simplify this. x4 divided by x4 is just 1. Any number divided by itself is 1. So they actually cancel out. Okay, those are good. y10 divided by y6, well there's 10 y's up here and 6 y's here. I can cancel out all but 4 of these. So those go away and I've got 4 left. So I just get y4 on the top. Okay, those were kind of tricky. But if you just keep at it and just be careful to do everything correctly, it's not that bad in the end. Okay, for solving equations, it just takes a little bit of logic. A little logic. Let's look at number 1. 5 squared is 25. So if I want these to be equal, this is 25 equals 25 to what power? Well, 25 equals 25 to what power? Well, it has to be to the first power. Okay, so the x in this case has to be 1. 5 squared is equal to 25 to the first power. Okay, so here we get 9 to the 6th here, and we got 3. Well, I have to square 3 to get 9, and then I have to raise it to the 6th power, so it's like this. So if I square 3, that gives me 9, and then that's raised to the 6th power. Okay, so what has got to be the exponent on the 3 if I look at those two things together, raise a power to a power? It's got to be x 12. That's got to be a 12. X has to be 12, 3 to the 12. Okay, now look at this. 4 to the 1/2 is really the square root of 4, which is 2. So what do I have to raise the 16 by to get 2? Well, I have to take the square root twice. So if I'm taking the square root twice, that is the 4th root. So it's 16 to the 1/4. Okay, 16 to the 1/4. Notice 16 is the square of that. That means it's 1/2 times 1/2 gives us 1/4 for the exponent. Okay, on this one, 3 to the x power equals 1/9. Well, something has to flip it to get it on the bottom, and something has to square it to get it to be 9. So to flip it, I need a negative, and to square it, I need it to be 2. So 3 to the negative 2. That flips it, and that squares it, so it gives me 1/9. Again, just a little logic using solving some of these equations. Okay, last in this series, examples, the 5th set of examples, we're going to do scientific notation. Again, we're going to distribute the 2, put the 2 on that and the 2 on that. That's going to give me 2 to the 2nd, which is 4. And then I multiply those, I get -4. So it's times 10 to the -4. And that's a good answer, okay, because that number is between 1 and 10. I'm going to distribute. I get 3 to the 3rd, which is 27. I get 10 to the 4th to the 3rd, which is 10 to the 12th. I have to make this smaller. So to fix that, I have to make that larger, 10 to the 13th. Okay. Okay, keep going. We're going to distribute here and here. So I get 2.5 to the -2, which we're going to do in a second, times 10 to the -12. 10 to the -12. Okay, 2.5 to the -2, you're going to square it and flip it over. And actually, when you do that, you get 6.25. Flipped over is 1 over 6.25. And when you divide that, you get 0.16. So I get 0.16 times 10 to the -12. Move it to make it bigger. Okay, make that smaller. So 1.6 times 10 to the -13th. Make that bigger, make that smaller. Okay, now with this one, we're going to distribute here and here. So I got 0.3 to the -3, and I've got 10 to the -6. Well, we're going to do this 0.3 to the -3. So when I do 0.3 times 0.3 times 0.3, I should get 0.027. Okay, now I've got to flip it, so it's going to be 1 divided by 0.027. And this is not going to be a pretty decimal, but we're going to round it. So I get 37 and some change with the decimal. So I'm going to go with 30 times 10 to the -6. Okay, make that smaller and make that larger. So I've got to go 3 times 10 to the -5. And that sums up this lesson.